Hey everyone, and welcome back to SierraCast TV. You already know we love to break down the big stories, and well, this one is a doozy. We're talking about that controversial hit in the Texans-Jaguars game, the one that has everyone buzzing. So on today's deep dive, we're going to get you all up to speed on exactly what went down. We'll look at all the reactions and try to understand why this one play is sparking so much debate. By the end, you'll not only know about the play itself, but you'll also understand why it matters. Why it matters so much in the bigger picture of the NFL. Was it really that bad? Why are people so fired up about it? And what does it all say about player safety in today's game? Well, let's find out. Okay, so rewind with me back to the second quarter of the game. Texans are up 6-0. Things are heating up. Jaguars quarterback Trevor Lawrence scrambles for a first down, and then he starts to slide, to avoid contact. Seems like a pretty routine play, right?
You would think so. I mean, especially since sliding is like the textbook move for quarterbacks. It's how they protect themselves.
Right.
But that's where things get interesting.
Because Texans linebacker Al-Shaair comes in and delivers a helmet-to-helmet hit on Lawrence.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it was not a pretty sight.
Not pretty at all. And to be honest, more importantly, it's exactly the kind of hit the NFL is trying to eliminate, to protect these quarterbacks, especially when they're already down in a vulnerable position like sliding. And to add to that, this isn't even Al-Shaair's first time with these questionable hits. He was actually fined earlier this season for punching a Bears player.
So there's some history there, which, probably adds even more fuel to the fire here. But honestly, it wasn't even just the hit itself. It was Al-Shaair's reaction after that seemed to really pour gasoline on the fire.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, instead of just taking the penalty like you're supposed to, he argues with the refs. Then things escalate even more when some of the Jaguars players get in his face.
Yeah.
And the whole thing just blew up into a huge brawl on the field.
Yeah, things went off the rails there. And that's when Jaguars cornerback Jerry Jones ended up getting ejected for throwing a punch.
It's like everyone just felt like they had to react, Which I think says a lot about the emotions surrounding this kind of hit.
Yeah, it definitely felt like a powder keg waiting to explode.
Yeah.
So with all of that going on, you can just imagine how everyone else reacted. Let's talk about what some of the players and coaches had to say, starting with the Jaguars.
Well, Jaguars tight end Evan Engram didn't hold back. He straight up called it a dirty hit. He said he just acted on instinct to defend his quarterback.
I mean, you can't blame him, right? Seeing your quarterback take a hit like that has got to be pretty upsetting.
Totally. Then you've got Jaguars defensive end Josh Allen, and he makes a really interesting point. He said that a few years ago, a hit like that would have been seen as a great play. But the rules are different now. Player safety has become a much bigger priority.
And that's a key takeaway here, I think. We're seeing a real shift in how the game is played and perceived these days. Then you have Jaguars safety Andrew Wingard, who praised Jones for standing up for Lawrence, even though it meant getting ejected. It's a pretty strong show of team unity.
It really is. But then on the other side of the field, you have Texans quarterback C.J. Stroud. And he said he's praying for Lawrence, and that he doesn't think Al-Shaair meant to injure him. Even with all that was going on, there's still a sense of sportsmanship there.
Yeah, it seems like Stroud was trying to balance supporting his teammate while recognizing how serious the situation was. And we can't forget about Texans coach DeMeco Ryans. He called the hit unfortunate and said it wasn't the kind of play they coach.
That statement from Ryans is really interesting. I think it highlights the struggle that coaches are facing in today's NFL. How do you coach aggressive, hard-hitting football, but also prioritize player safety and all of these rules designed to protect them?
Yeah, it's a tough line to walk. And of course, social media blew up after the game. Some people were calling for Al-Shaair to be suspended for a long time, and others were defending him, saying it wasn't intentional. It turned into this whole debate about what a dirty hit even is and how the game should be played.
Exactly. And I think that's what makes this incident so important. It sparked a much bigger conversation about how the game is changing, about balancing the old school physicality with the need for player safety in the modern game. But before we get into all of that, let's talk about the real consequences of this hit, the consequences on the game itself. With Lawrence out of the game, backup quarterback, Mac Jones had to step in for the Jaguars. And get this, he almost led them to a comeback win.
He did. He really did. Jones showed us what he can do leading the Jaguars in a super close game. They ended up losing, though. Texans won 23-20. But Jones' performance definitely got people talking.
It makes you wonder, what happens if Lawrence's injury takes a while to heal? Could Jones actually be a real option for them long term? It kind of makes the Jaguars' future at quarterback a little less certain.
Sure, a lot of questions swirling around the Jaguars now.
Yeah.
And we still don't know what's going to happen with Al-Shaair or what kind of punishment he might get for that hit. The NFL has been trying to really crack down on these dangerous plays, so it'll be interesting to see what they do.
It's a tough spot for them. They want to keep the players safe, of course. But they also have to keep that excitement, that physicality that people love about football. This incident really puts that dilemma front and center.
It really does. It's like the league is at a crossroads. Do they make an example out of Al-Shaair, send a message that they're serious about player safety? Or do they say, football's a violent sport, and let them off with something lighter? Whatever they decide, it's going to have a big impact on the whole league.
It's not just about this one player or this one game. It's about the future of the sport. The NFL has to decide what kind of game they want football to be moving forward, and the fans are a big part of that too.
Absolutely. The fans are the ones who make the sport popular. If the NFL goes too far one way or the other, makes it too soft or lets these dangerous plays happen, they could lose their audience. It's a balancing act for sure.
It's about protecting the players, but without changing the whole nature of the game. And that's a conversation everyone needs to be a part of. Players, coaches, officials, the fans, everyone.
That's a great point. You've given us a lot to think about. This one play really has brought up so many issues. It's going to be interesting to see how it all unfolds.
Definitely. And we're going to dive even deeper into all of this, explore what it all means for the game we love.
Okay, so we talked about the brawl, the reactions, everything that happened after. But the big question is still out there. How should the NFL handle this whole thing? Is a long suspension the right move for Al-Shaair?
I mean, that's a tough one to answer. You have to think about the precedent it would set, What were Al-Shaair's intentions and what message does the NFL want to send? Suspending him for a long time would definitely show they're serious about protecting quarterbacks. But some people might say it wasn't intentional. It was just a bad decision made in a split second in the heat of the moment.
And you also have to think about how the conversation around football has changed. The old school fans might say, hey, this is a tough sport. These guys know the risks.
Yeah.
But there's so much more awareness about concussions now and all the long-term health problems they can cause. It's a really tricky situation for the NFL.
It is. It's like two totally different philosophies are clashing. You've got the old school mentality that values toughness above everything else, that accepts that violence is just part of the game. And then you have the modern approach that puts player safety first, that recognizes we have to change as we learn more about these injuries. The NFL have to figure out how to bridge that gap somehow.
And don't forget about the players. They're the ones risking their bodies every single game. What kind of message does it send if the league doesn't protect them?
That's a great point. Players need to know that their health is the top priority. The NFL needs to make them feel safe, that they're not being put in unnecessary danger. This incident really forces us to face that responsibility.
So what happens now? Can they even eliminate these kinds of dangerous hits completely? Or will they always be part of football?
That is the million-dollar question. It's all about evolution. Can the sport change its rules, its culture? Can it find a way to keep that physical nature, but also keep the players safe? Or will it keep dealing with the consequences of the violence?
It's a question for everyone to think about. The fans, the players, the coaches, everyone involved in the game. The future of football might depend on finding that balance.
And that's why I think this deep dive has been so important. It wasn't just about breaking down one play. It was about starting a conversation about the core of football and the challenges it's facing. It's about understanding the context and what it all means and deciding what we want the future of this sport to look like.
I think you said it perfectly. We covered a lot of ground today, but we want to thank all of you for tuning in to this deep dive.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
And remember to subscribe to SeerCast TV for more deep dives like this one. We're your source for news and entertainment, and we break down these complex issues to help you understand what's going on. Keep those conversations going, because the future of football is in all of our hands. Thanks for listening to SeerCast TV. We are an awesome source for news and entertainment.